that nothing except the power of faith and the authority of the priesthood can save individuals and congregations from the atomic holocausts that surely shall be.
I have faith that the Constitution will be saved as prophesied by Joseph Smith, but it will not be saved in Washington.
And a major city yet to be determined in Russia.
Travis Wingett, I hope you can see the complexity of fulfilling prophecy of the latter days now. As I am the only one who knows what to look for. I am the only one who is doing research on this. And so it's a little different than The Core with Aaron Eckhart, former Mormon, in which he is brought by the government to see the corpses to see if he can figure out if it's a national security threat. And he finds out it's worse than that. It's the end of the world. And so he's in a position to know how to make a scale model of the world and do the research to find out, oh, world's going to end unless we take a vehicle down to the center of the earth and nuke it to restart the earth again. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen the movie from decades ago. But in that situation, there are other people who would know that scenario and know what to do, even though Aaron Eckhart is the one in the movie who's the only one who figures it out and does the job. But Zelensky, superstar, don't you know who I am? If that was his pronunciation of his name. Zemsky. But he's the one that just wanted to be popular for it. But this, nobody knows. There is not a single school in the world, there is not a single course that covers all this material. And I've told you, being born and raised Mormon, that's what I wanted to learn. And so I went off to school, took the courses I wanted to learn about. And so the collection of the courses at the University of Lethbridge, the case worker, whatever she was titled, said, well, we'll turn these into degrees, dual bachelors with a minor. And then went on to the University of Utah for other stuff. And so it's, my education is science-based. It is not, we're going to read the scriptures and you're going to be tested on your knowledge of what the literal word says, rather than doing research. Real scientific study. And so yesterday, the moon, which is falling, was at Gog and Magog, Mars and Venus. And as I'm learning, there are what God intends to have fulfilled. There is what mankind fulfills, both intentionally and unintentionally. Putin attacking in the Gog and Magog is intentional. The timing of which was intentional. I've been warning you about that. He could have easily been given the green light any time during the previous president's 4 years and gotten away with it. But he chose now to do it. As I warned you in advance of its coming. And whether or not I prevented it and delayed it till now, being 4 months after, whether that was intentional on their part or unintentional on their part, prophecy's fulfilled, guys. And so yesterday, day 7, I told you, Gog and Magog. Joseph Smith with God, not the Christian interpretation of Putin and the church from Exodus 38, Ezekiel 38, having to do with an Exodus, but Ezekiel 38, which Bruce R. McConkie put in the heading. And then Bruce R. McConkie did that video that I desperately would love to do a commentary on. But we're kind of running out of time. But we'll see what happens. But yesterday was God's fulfillment. Letting the Mormons know that the great and abominable church with the false Christ is Nelson. The signs in the heavens and the likeness of things on the earth. Joseph Smith translation, Revelation 12:1. This is what I've been trying to teach you guys this whole time. And there is probably some very shocked Mormons right now, as they're entering into their faith crisis because they've never searched for truth, because they've been following the living prophets whom Nelson last night, as part of his neglect of Ukraine and distraction away from war, spoke to the Californians about only trusting reliable sources for your research. And like I said in last night's video with the fulfillment, I'm the only one who knows this information. Me. I'm the only one you can turn to for the truth on all this. See, for the actual events that are occurring, yeah, there's lots of news coverage that's confirming that it's real and it's happening. You can trust a lot of it. The Russian news, however, is flip-flopping, and that's an interesting thing, is that on the Russian news stations, they have cameras set up at border crossings and city vantage points, and people on the ground who are just recording troop movements and the battles, and hours of just the cameraman filming. No commentary, nothing, just film of recording what is going on. That is real news. That we can trust. But then Russia's news agencies come out with commentary during and in between and all that stuff, where they're making claims that Ukrainian soldiers have been captured. I'm not hearing the other side talk about it, but that's common. Russia claims that nothing is happening the way that is actually happening either. But then Their Russian news is also claiming that Ukraine is attacking themselves, destroying their own city. That one was funny, but not as funny as their claim also that because of the sanctions of America and the EU, NATO, that's going to cause World War III. See, the Russian perspective is we're not in it yet. Russia's merely peacekeeping and doing a peacekeeping mission. So that cognitive dissonance, intentional cognitive dissonance, is what has gotten Russia in trouble, as the EU is banning Russian news in the EU. But they're just setting up cameras and just letting the cameras roll. That is crucial for the historical documents. You know, if you remember World War II documentaries, there are film footage of Normandy and other stuff. And so those are historical documents. And so what Russia is doing, they're the only ones I'm finding who are recording the actual history of what's going on, rather than reporting a summary of a biased viewpoint. And so Nelson is purposely causing a biased viewpoint for Mormons, when all Mormons need to be focused on World War III. This is it. And Nelson is just gallivanting around doing other things. The prophets going around the world. Oh yeah, nothing's happening, nothing to see here. Move along. Faith in Jesus. Jesus will heal. Jesus will give you peace. And that's just horrendous right now. This is not what Mormons need. You have family here in Utah, whether they're Mormon or not. They have family. 11,000 Mormons are Ukrainian in Ukraine. And Nelson is just, no, don't care. They're on their own. And I saw that in Bruce's video. He quotes a passage about how a church must physically provide for its members. Otherwise it has no power to save. And then Bruce R. goes and says, you guys are responsible for preparing for what's coming. And if you don't prepare, you're going to suffer the consequences. The church will not be there for you. So what good is the church then? Why are we giving the church money? Why is the church taking out 10% of all income and hoarding it if they have no intention of ever having a rainy day to provide for Mormons? These are things you need to be aware of. Not go on the attack against guys like me who see what's going on, who's warning you in advance of what's going on. So, there's over 300,000 refugees now that have made it across the border. Putin is getting his butt kicked, though, as he's demanding that Ukraine surrender. That's what he means by we'll hold talks. But notice that's at the Belarus border. And the Belarus president is saying, oh yeah, I'm getting all set up and prepared for if any talks occur. Yeah, well, he's also sending troops in, along with military and weaponry, equipment and weaponry. He's already joined in the war. He's all for this, to attack Ukraine. And yet, where is our military? We brought over more troops to do what? Stand around? And so, as a result of getting his butt kicked, he needs a justification. So he creates a lie and says that NATO and the United States are preparing for a nuclear strike. And therefore he ordered his nuclear strike force to start preparing. And I saw this morning, yeah, he's now testing ICBMs. He knows what he's doing. It's all a con. He will nuke. It's going to annoy me to no end if people keep making the excuses, oh, I'm sure Putin has learned his lesson now. Oh, we've sanctioned him, so he's hurting, and he'll back down now. He's learned his lesson. He'll never do it again. He says he wants peace. He wants to talk. Oh my God. But Putin did take one city that I heard. It was a city of about 100,000 people. He did take that one, though he didn't take the other two, the capital or the second largest city in Ukraine. The Ukrainians are holding their ground in those areas so far. And so, like I mentioned in the other video, the Pope has now come out saying prepare for Ash Wednesday, for peace. He went to the Russian embassy telling Putin, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. So the Pope knows about the scriptures. He knows about the latter days. He knows Christian interpretation of Gog and Magog, separate from Joseph Smith's understanding of the false Christ of the Great and Abominable Church. They're separate. There's God's fulfillments, then there's the world's interpretive fulfillments, whether created or intentionally causing. Because the world is still waiting for Jerusalem to be destroyed and the war on Jerusalem. Putin's going for a quick, utter destruction of Ukraine to just completely destroy any hope of fulfilling the biblical prophecy for Christians. No Jesus coming. And then all of Christianity will go, oh, Jesus didn't come. What do we do now? And Mormons should be scared of that because they believe that Jesus is their Christ too. Ezekiel 38. If Putin nukes Ukraine so that it's uninhabitable, no Jesus, guess what, Mormons? That scriptural prophecy that Bruce R. McConkie put in the heading even does not come to pass. God's word is a failure. Joseph Smith, on the other hand, and so this morning the stock market will open up again, and there's already word that the futures market has crashed. It plunged is the word I heard. And so once the stock market opens up, expect an immediate 15-minute delay until everybody calms down, and then they'll open it up again for another plunge. And then another 15-minute timeout. That's the new thing they put in the stock market, is that when it reaches a certain percentage drop, that timeout, we don't want to crash. That's the fail-safe mechanism. But if everybody's selling, it's going to happen eventually. It's just delaying the inevitable. So that's the news portion. So let's go over today's sign in the heavens for the likeness of things on the earth. As I keep trying to remember to put in the video clip as well, so that you don't go to the first one, because nobody goes to the way YouTube has it set up. And I didn't know in the beginning that I should do a separate category for this, but I learned in retrospect, yeah, this would have been a playlist idea. So, the moon, being born out of Virgo, is falling. It's a waning moon. It's darkening. And I've been going over each day and showing how it's been fulfilled so far. And if you're unfamiliar with any of this, it's like, well, yeah, no big deal. I don't see anything special and about any of this. But again, I'm the only one who knows the subject matter. So when I tell you yesterday that the moon is falling is by Mars and Venus that are in conjunction with each other, and they're in the position of the creation story, woman on top, from the Egyptian Heliopolis creation glyph, Adam and Lilith, his first wife. And they're at the back end of Sagittarius. That's all Egyptian ancient symbolism that's involved here. This is where they got this from. And so to have Nelson give a talk to Mormons, even though it was just in California, and I have that video, I need to cut out Nelson's speech from it to isolate that, and then do segment clips from it to use, like I did the last one. But I've been going over with you, again, signs in the heavens in the likeness of things on the earth. All these planets represent people on earth that are playing the major role, as the scriptures are telling us who they are. You have the false Christ, the leader of the great and abominable church. And so his bride is the church. Mars and Venus, a couple. Mars is the false Christ. Venus, the Mormons of the great and abominable church. Now, I had a Mormon who is this is all new to him. He doesn't understand how the Book of Mormon testifies to us that the great and abominable church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just the inverted pentagram alone, guys. That's all you need to know to convince you. I had my wedding with the woman now called my second ex at the Salt Lake Temple, room number 13. My Relief Society president took photographs at the temple. She told us after she had taken the photographs. She came up to me and told us I made sure to get the whole door in. Most people don't get the whole door in. They just focus on the family. She's clueless about what it is and what it means. But when I saw it, I went, oh crap. And so I've been talking about Nauvoo, what the symbolism of what was put on the outside means. And it was not Joseph Smith's design. That was put on after he was dead. Because the same person who put it on the Nauvoo temple, or ordered it to be put on, is the same guy who ordered it on the Salt Lake Temple. Brigham Young. And Brigham Young, as the Great and Abominable Church, was destroyed. 1887, when John Taylor died. That ended the church from the face of the earth, because the United States of America shut it down. I have gone over in the early days that how prophecies are patternistic and often dualistic. They have multiple fulfillments. And Brigham Young in 1887 wasn't the latter days. We have scriptural star dates for right now, between 2017 to 2024. Everything that's happening now is in scriptures and prophesied about, because they all knew the time frame. And I've been going over how there are people who are knowing of this time frame and are purposely causing evil and thus fulfillments. But then there's also God who's involved, that they can't do nothing about, even though they think they're trying to. Because again, they don't understand the dualism of Gog and Magog. God is fulfilling both of it for them, as Putin is causing the land area that Christian interpretation created, but God is talking about the Great and Abominable Church. And under Brigham Young, John Taylor technically, it ended. It was destroyed. It fell. Now the church shattered. Different Mormons created different factions of Mormonism, Brigham Young's church. So you got the Apostolic Brethren, the Allreds, the ones down in Mexico, the FLDS church with Warren Jeffs, those different groups, and they should be signaling to Mormons about what Brigham Young and his church was all about. Militant, aggressive, mafia-like. So I watched an episode of the first episode of Big Love, where it's supposedly a branch off from Brigham Young, and the president of that branch off is shaking down Bill Paxton. And apparently, did he die, or is that Bill Pullman? No, it's Bill Paxton. He was showing his face. Apparently he died, and there was a wrongful death, and I think either the family for him filed the lawsuit of a wrongful death suit, or they won the wrongful death suit. I was like, he died? Holy crap. But but yeah, he's being shaken down as the president of the church is saying it's God's will. Yeah. See, the church currently, that is a branch off, as Wilford Woodruff, as the president of the Quorum of the 12, kept that tradition because Brigham Young created it. He had to. He was the president of the 12, and in order to justify being the successor, he had to change the way succession runs. But the other branch-offs knew the church had fallen and needed to be restored. And so Wilford Woodruff is an asterisk president. He can't be president. The United States shut down the church. And what resulted is that branch, under Heber J. Grant, started up the church again, reincorporated it. Heber J. Grant became the first president of the restored Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But they don't call it restored. They claim nothing happened, nothing to see here, move along, everything's well in Zion. All is well in Zion. The United States didn't destroy us. We're still going. And now what they've done, because of what the United States has done to them, they focused on paying for fulfillment rather than trying to build up an army to fulfill. That's why polygamy. That's why the settlements. I've been going over that with you. And so these prophets, through Wilford Woodruff, are the only ones who know of the plot to destroy America and the world, to rule and reign with their God, Jesus, which they know is a fraud. Because they don't see him, they don't communicate with him, it's all a con. Constantine created him. Go back to your first vision. Pay attention. Get out your dictionary. Get on Wikipedia. Nicene Creed. And go to Gospel of Matthews in Wikipedia. Let's go over that for you. Waiting for lightning to strike. Gospel of Matthew. When they... Oh, it's done. Yay! Now, the church leads us to believe, because they're not translating it correctly, that the book of Matthew is presented in a manner in which the church prophets find acceptable. So Mormons believe, therefore, that everything's fine, and the footnotes help clarify the mistranslations. Seriously? You guys up to there? But scholarship are only guessing as to when this book was written. but they know it was not an eyewitness account. And as I'm the only one who has done this research and education, I'm the only one who knows this information. As scholars are still fooling around because they're not using scientific processes and methods. They're allowing their biases to corrupt their information for you. And so they say most scholars believe. Well, that's an indicator that those aren't science scholars. If they're giving out beliefs and they're hoping that a majority will dictate truth, but people fall for this. Well, they're in the field, they know. No, they don't. And so they're thinking 80 to 90 CE when it was written, with a possible range between 70 to 110. And so a pre-70 date, as I'm reading, is a minority view. And so if you demand that it's pre-70, you have people who will support you, who will give you affirmation and validation. None of that is scientific. But they do know that the identity of its author is unknown, and that it is not Matthew. It is not the apostle. And if you don't know, people would write during this Roman period time attributing the books to other authors. You know, like the 5 books of Moses, written during the Roman period time. The Essenes of the Qumran community. That is the oldest found collection of Bible texts. Roman period. There's nothing found matching those earlier, except Nineveh. On the walls carved in Nineveh, there is the scene where they come to Jerusalem. The Assyrian or the Babylonians come to Jerusalem and say, "Hand it over." All of that discussion between the two kingdoms, the peace treaty at Belarus, is carved on the walls. And so that was used by the Roman period author onto the story form in those books that are not in the Torah, but that's where those come from. And so that's why they're in Semitic in that particular area. They are not in Paleo-Hebrew. And so those are things that you scientifically need to know about. You need to know about anachronisms. You need to know about linguistic patterns. You need to know about redactors. And so if you're going to assume that Jesus is talking about being Trinity, then what you're claiming is that the Gospels are written after the Nicene Creed, the Nicene Council, because Constantine created it. And so it did not exist until Constantine created it. And so if you're claiming that the Gospels are what Constantine created, then you're claiming that the Gospels were written after 325 CE. There's your date. And so all these scholars are wrong. And they may be, because their biases are causing them to put it into a time frame that they can accept and reconcile with their Christian thinking. And you can't do that when you're doing science. You can't do that with the church, with Joseph Smith, his history. Mormons demand and force others to accept that it's literal history. And ex-Mormons are finding out we can't reconcile it. See, we'll say that Joseph Smith claimed it, but he used a rock and a hat. See, the ex-Mormons are merging the two to harmonize. That's what September 6th did. They were good, faithful Mormons. They were finding out stuff, and so they tried to harmonize. And in so doing, they were anti-science and screwed things up even more. And the church, made an example of them. And so, as we go to Matthew itself, in verse 18 of Matthew 1, now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise. Well, it was Constantine who designated these certain scriptures to be literal history, and that Jesus is the name of the Christ. But pay attention to what's being done in the text. Joseph is espoused to Mary, and we don't have that document. It was refused to be put in, that Joseph bought her from the temple. And she's supposed to be a virgin, but she's pregnant. That's the whole purpose of needing the temple story for this. But they took it out, and so we're confused. How did she get pregnant? What was she just in a family and he came to get her? What happened? We're not told, because the scriptures have been taken out. But nonetheless, it's not a literal history. It's symbolic of the latter days, or apocalyptic literature here. And so Joseph, after giving us a genealogy, is the son of David. Joseph is the fulfillment. But he's told, yeah, it's not you. Your stepson of the woman who's impregnated by some mysterious person is going to be named Jesus in verse 21. And then in verse 22, this was done, naming him Jesus, Joseph being the descendant of David, not Jesus. This was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, what prophet? All of you know this. Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is wrong. It's the god Ammon. But nonetheless, multiple errors here, all over the place. This is not translated correctly, even by better translations than our LDS version. And so, Joseph went through with the marriage, and he did not have sex with her. which is symbolic. John, when Jesus dies, is there at the tomb. He's resurrected, not ascended in this story. In the other stories, he ascends and comes back to visit. But in John, he tells Mary, his wife, because she goes to sexually embrace him. They sort of mask it with a bad translation. By calling her woman, she has children. But, hey, the Pope said she's Mary Magdalene, who's the slut whore, adulteress, that Jesus said, don't judge her, I love her. She's going to be my wife. And then claim that she has children. Yeah, when you turn fiction into literal history, there are problems created. Work in the glory. If you think that family is real, you're gonna have some problems. You're gonna have Mormons claiming, oh yeah, I'm a descendant of that family. It's like Mel Gibson's The Patriot, set in the Revolutionary War. That family did not exist. They imposed a family into a historical time frame to tell a fiction. And this same thing here with scriptures. That concept of writing is well known. It's been around for millennia. But they don't have sex. And he says, don't have sex with me. I have not ascended to my Father, which is the throne, which is when he comes again, because he failed the first time during the Roman period. Yeah, it's not a literal history. It's prophecy. And so there it is again. He did not know her until she brought forth Jesus. Emmanuel. There's confusion here. He's talking about the latter days. This sign from Isaiah, which is the reverse of Jesus, Yah of salvation for Jesus, Israel, or Isaiah, salvation of Yah. Just reversed. The two words. If this is what was written originally, not tampered with, and it's before Constantine, then what you see here is the author telling of a story that has a specific message about the latter days. And I see it because I know about Revelation chapter 12. That's the star date that John gives for Isaiah, that everybody knew about, everybody was prophesying about. And he's saying the marriage supper of the latter day temple wedding feast had not yet occurred. That's what's being referred to here. Because the date for the birth in John, in Revelations, 23rd September 2017, the first year of the latter days. The last year, with the marriage supper wedding feast of the Lamb in the temple, April 2024. And so that's why the story is written as it is. It's not supposed to be understood as, Oh no, women when they're pregnant, you're not allowed. It's against God's law to have sex with them when you're the husband. You're looking beyond the mark. And so, in case you're wondering if that is to be the sign, Matthew carries on. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, that's Virgo. Spica is the star of Bethlehem, the house of bread. That is the sign on the 23rd of September 2017. And Judea, king of the Jews. Well, he wasn't king of the Jews. He's not even supposed to be king of the Jews. Jeremiah tells us he's not the king of the Jews. He's only going to save Judah. But he is the king. And so when you go now to Joseph Smith with this corrected knowledge, you begin to open up your eyes and you're enlightened as you realize Joseph Smith is talking about a Mormon. Joseph Smith is talking about himself being the founding Christ, because Christian concept of Christ is wrong. It was created by Constantine. The concept of the Jews is human. And yet, Avraham Gileadi's footnotes were often taken out and replaced with IEs or ORs. Because he knew. But he tried to reconcile that there would be the Mormon and then there would be Jesus. And that's unacceptable to the church. No. And they're right. No. There's just the Mormon. There is no Jesus. But by introducing the Mormon, that paves the way for future Mormons to go, you know what? Jesus is not in this at all. We need to remove Jesus. Wow. It's the Mormon. Wow. And so do you understand now that Joseph Smith, by saying it's a Mormon, as 2 Nephi chapter 3, Mormons love this. They think that this proves the Book of Mormon is the literal gold plates written by ancients, and Joseph Smith translated it, and it doesn't matter whether it's a rockin' hat or not. But Joseph truly testified, saying, "A seer shall the Lord my God raise up." That's a human. I've gone over this with you. But in verse 15, "And his name shall be called after me," Joseph. "And it shall be after the name of his father," Joseph. See, ex-Mormons see this as a fraud and a con. They purposely wrote it this way. But Mormons see it as fulfillment, that this is all real and the prophecies are being fulfilled. And they are, because the Smiths created it to be. But they talk of a future Mormon. And that cannot be created. To have him be the fulfillment of all scriptural prophecies. Little babies can't tell parents to conceive on specific days so that he'll be born on a specific day according to prophecy. I mean, you can time it to a week plus or minus. But like with our kids, we would have guessing, when is the kid going to be born? And it was more so with Clayton. That's how I remember his birthday, is because I guessed June 13th because of the conception. But he was born June 11th, 2 days early. And so, it is, there was a child born this year for New Year's at 2:22 in the morning. That was cool. Or was it 1:22 in the morning? Can't remember now. I just remember seeing a cute baby, and the news was trying to say how cool it was. And it was a Utah baby that was born on that. So probably either ABC4 or Fox 13 News. I checked their YouTube channels for that video clip that I saw. But, he says, I will raise up a Moses, as well as talking about the man like Moses in this same passage. And so as Mormons, for the great and abominable church to withhold this information from you, which has been right in front of you this whole time. Now, do you understand about blindness by the great and abominable church and the ruining of the scriptures to cause a stumbling block? We know they're not taking care of their flock. Who are you looking for? Are you dead set that it has to be Jesus? Because if you are, Putin is going to nuke Ukraine to prevent Jesus from coming, and thus destroy all Christianity, anybody who believes in Jesus. That's why the Pope is freaked. But Nelson, he's not freaked. He paid for it. And a temple in a major city yet to be determined in Russia. He paid for the war. He paid for the nukes. Because they want their kingdom back. Just having control over Utah is not enough. Because they're pushing for religious freedom to be exempt from the Constitution and the laws of the land. They're pushing for Deseret. And the only way they'll get it is to destroy the United States of America. But they can't do it militarily anymore because the United States shut down Brigham's church. So now they have to pay for it, for others to do it. And so I've gone over with you, God is pissed. He's been letting us know this is the great and abominable church, with the lunar eclipses connected to each and every single president's death. And Wilford Woodruff, who says that they'll never lead us astray, God will take them out. Yeah, signs in the heavens in the likeness of things on the earth, death of the presidents of the church with a lunar eclipse. Wilford Woodruff got 2. He was in between 2 of them. And so the moon today is in Lucifer's goat beast. There in the belly. As Saturn, Saturn? They're overlapping in the names, but I'm pretty sure it's Saturn is at the back end already, and Mercury is making its way to be also in conjunction there, as the moon is right there at a sliver. It's near death, right before Ash Wednesday. These are the government representation, as Venus and Mars are religious. Today, expect a government thing. Like as we saw yesterday with the religious thing. As the world thinks that Magog and Gog are Ukraine and Russia for Christian interpretation, which, but Nelson fulfilled it yesterday. Nelson didn't do an advance notification that he was going to speak, at least that I could find. That was a sneaky one, because it's only for California Mormons. So that would have been passed down to the stake presidents to notify their membership. And thus, Nelson fulfilled the prophecy of the sign in the heavens, just like he did with the Mormon Youth Battalion back in 2018 in the summertime, where Mars was at the mouth of the goat beast. And I did the videos warning about what was going to happen, and then afterwards the fulfillment. And so today, fulfillment was yesterday. So today, this is what we're looking for. And tomorrow at 6 p.m. is the Jewish designation of Ash Wednesday for the Christians. Just so that you're aware, Putin will retaliate. Putin will go through with this. He's setting up the pretext based on a lie. We've seen the pattern. We know what he's going to do. He's not going to withhold it. Can't go through with it. I can't do it. I can't nuke people, because he has. He's already done it. He's nuked his country. He has no problem using nukes. He has no problem with chemical warfare. And if he can't take control of Ukraine, nobody will. And so, heads up, guys. Heads up. Because we're in the latter day. Pun intended.